We're just going off the spoilers that are on the Force of Will Facebook, right? Okay.
Watch the fucking video. What? No. Oh fuck. He has a targeting channel, I know.
Haha.
And
It's a
then you didn't
magic
respond. Yeah.
Hey, the rulers, welcome back after a long week of Force of Will. Class is out, but you might still have homework, and so for that reason, you've come to the right place. It's Office Hours, your favorite ever live Force of Will podcast featuring myself, Jeremy Franklin, and I am joined, as always, by the lovely Mike Rance. Good stuff, and Paul Reisman.
Yeah.
I don't have it. Air.
When in doubt, pinky out.
We are happy to have you all here. Glad to have you here for another fun week. Just want to say, if you like what we're doing here, you feel like wanting to help us and support us, you can click that subscribe button down below. Or if you want to get access to cool perks like our friends Matt Seymour, Toby Gaffney, Mike Rance have on their profile with those cool badges and lots of fun emotes, you can click that join button down below. It is the easiest way to support us financially and gets you access to all kinds of perks. In addition, just want to let you know there is a little bit of time left. You can go check out Odyssey Games' is linked down in the description to pick up your pre-orders for Saga Cluster Epic of the Dragon Lord. It is $85 a box, and if you use the code alumni, all caps, as you check out, you get free shipping in the United States on any boxes, orders of 2 boxes or more. So, check it out. And you're supporting an LGS when you do so, because they are a brick and mortar here in Michigan. So, with that out of the way, let's go ahead and jump right in. We are going to talk about some fun spoilers. We saw the 2 last cards for Welser, then we're going to look at Darkness stuff, and then the seeming support for Ragnarok. So, with that, let's jump in. Whoop. Our first one here is Magical Dragon.
Yeah. Big boy.
Yeah, so this is he's along the same vein of the other dragons. He gets cheaper in some way. 17, same stat line, has flying. It's for every chant you played for this turn, and you put the top card of your Magic Stone into the deck, or into the field, rested. I honestly think he's the worst. Like,
I mean, honestly, in a format where we have Griffin, he's probably going to do nothing.
Right. I think that he's like tied, if not worse than the white dragon, who is the vanilla, purely because I don't think Ragnarok's going to have I don't think Welser's going to have a hard time casting multiple spells per turn. That's not my concern. It's the fact that it brings it into the field rested.
Yeah, if this thing just brought it in from the top of the deck, if this thing just Gretel'd the stone, it would have been sick.
It would have been easily top 2, in my opinion. But the fact that it comes into play tapped, I'm just like, nah.
Yep.
Nope.
Also the fact that in order to make it even worth playing this card, you also have to play like 3 chants beforehand, and then you just take up your cards in your hand, and it's just like...
Yeah, it takes a lot to turn this guy on, and the thing that he turns on to is pretty meh.
Yeah,
like exactly. I would rather just pay 3 will, use Spirit of the Soil, and get a stone into play tapped.
I'd rather just wait a turn and get a stone normally.
Or that. Like,
I think I would rather play by the game's rules than play this card that cheats in a stone.
You're probably not wrong. Unfortunately. So, poor Welser. But Welser did get Magical Wind Arrow, which is a lot more interesting. So 1-drop quick cast, choose 1, return target attacking resonator to its owner's hand, or recover a Magic Stone you control. Why do I like this card? Because if it's on your opponent's turn, you can do both, technically, if it's your first chant.
True.
Because Welser can just choose the mode to return attacking resonator and then just recover the stone with his own ability.
Or you can turn 1 mana into 2 mana, which is actually kind of neat.
Yeah, exactly. I like that as well.
It's like a mini ramp card for Welser, being a thing that increases your chant count, which is really nice.
Yeah.
It's really...
I have to be careful about looking at what spells Welser plays before the upkeep, though, because you don't want to waste your recovery too early, right? Because it's only the first chant you play per turn, right? So if you try to play something during your upkeep, you recover a stone, but then can't make use of it. You've kind of wasted Welser for the turn, which is...
I mean, the thing that you mostly want to do, I'm pretty sure, is just, cast Welser. Have Welser cast all the cards you want to cast with him at the end of your opponent's turn. Go into your turn. Don't play anything for 1 tap, and then just start going ham.
Yeah, that's probably true. Paul, any thoughts?
I was just looking at. We were talking about this a little bit when we were getting together last week, but it seems like blue and green are just going to be a really nice combination of colors for control, especially with things like Celesta, and then Gil is obviously not Gil. Wow, Welser is going to make really good use of this card. You haven't said anything I haven't heard you say, but I do think the green dragon is better than the white dragon just because you are getting a stone.
That's fair.
And I don't know, whenever you get a stone, it's good, in my opinion. But it's still not amazing, and it's a green card that isn't amazing.
What is this water now? Ridiculous.
Yeah. I said it when they first spoiled Celesta. Like, people were like, "Oh man, blue's always been bad." Force of Will, I Spy was like, bet. Out of everything we've seen so far, Celesta is currently on my best deck of the best ruler of the set so far. But enough about that. Let's go ahead and jump into our darkness stuff. First off, just going to show it off here because we've already seen it. It's the Ominous Moon. This is our pre-release promo. It's also a super rare in the set. Main things to note here is in this version of the card, she's in her traditional red outfit and she looks like a vampire. In the pre-release promo set, she does not look like a vampire and she's wearing purple. These are the differences. And we move on. Still a good card. I mean, the fact that this card is unchaseable, I think will play some variance, and there is a lot of ways for different colors to be able to get, at least right now, we see white and black both have ways to get +1/+1 counters. We'll have to see if that carries over to anything else.
And blue if you're playing Machina.
So, like, this is something that you can make use of and will be important because it's unchaseable, especially as an answer to Lilius. Like, this card will help keep Lilius in check at least slightly. We'll have to see what comes out of it beyond that, because this card says, you know, if they try to take their first action, you can kill the Lilius. They don't have a way to, like, spoof out and get some extra damage out of Lilius a different way first. You just say no. So this card will be important in some fashion. It's based on how much Lilius, like, rises to the top, right? So the more she sees play, the more this card will see play, and vice versa.
Yep.
I think this card will be really important in the early format, because I imagine people are going to jump on Lilius because it'll be something easy to turn sideways. But this card, I mean, Stoning to Death was a 2-drop, right?
Yeah.
And this thing is a 1-drop in a format where they're encouraging you to put +1/+1 counters on stuff. And we don't have Sandora anymore to negate stuff. Yeah, I said Sandora. Y'all forgot about that card, but I always keep an eye on it. It's a Windsecluded Refuge.
I love Windsecluded Refuge that doesn't draw a card because it's not in green. My favorite card.
Yeah, I mean, you're not right. We don't really have protection in that kind of way, so unchaseable protection is nice. We are going to go ahead and jump over, though, to the battle comes to an end, and then this is a 3-cost. Name a card, search your opponent's deck, graveyard, and hand for all cards that share a name with the card named, and remove them from the game. Then your opponent shuffles their deck. So,
I love 3-mana Do Nothing. It's my favorite card in the game. I love it so much. I want it all the time.
If the meta doesn't slow down, this card is very much 3-mana Do Nothing.
This card could have said also search your opponent's field, and it would have been great.
Yeah, for sure. I think that if the meta does slow down, or there are certain decks that, like, I think the longer the meta goes on and the more the deck lists are known, this card becomes much better, right? Because we want to see what decks are shaping up to try to do. So I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see this card make a meta impact until, like, maybe mid-season, whenever that takes place, because we'll probably be, like, set 2 looking towards set 3 release before this card sees real good impact, because you want to know what decks are playing, because you're not going to call this and be like, I'm blindly going to call this card.
And this thing's going to be really good in that Ragnarok matchup where you call a card and then remove a card.
Yeah, 1-for-1s, like, not gonna work. However, I mean,
best artwork in the set. So
seemingly, this is definitely a callback to Final Words, which was another card where Rhea was stabbing someone, and they were smiling while it happened. Final Words was the 4-cost quick cast kill a J ruler. Oh my gosh, it was 5-cost. 5-cost kill a J ruler. And Welser was smiling in that artwork. So like Rhea just like people just want Rhea to kill them. So like I guess this is, I don't know. I'm not gonna go further than that. But there's
two big differences between this and Final War.
Yeah, two.
I'm not gonna say them, but
jeez Louise. We do have though. Speaking of
tears flowing down both sides of her face.
Yes.
Anyway, move on. Don't give Mike the chance.
Yeah. So I will say though that card is probably one that sees play in that card actually probably does see play in Ragnarok, because of his ability to produce the will in the beginning of the turn. Like you can just produce double blue or produce double black regardless of what your first color is, and just like steal a major component of your opponent's deck on turn one. Like if you're playing against a Rezard deck, all copies of Death Scythe just gone. Right? Or against a Regalia.
You're about to high roll that hard, by all means high roll all you
right. I mean, like because it's a one of, it's definitely a card that I could see finding its way into a 40 card list for Ragnarok. But other than that, I think that card comes better the more of the meta becomes known, especially if it slows down.
Yep.
So speaking of, we have people who we've seen before are coming back. We have the Mikage sisters.
But they're elegant this time.
They're elegant this time. So 3-cost 9/9 Flying Drain Bane. Whenever this card deals damage, put 2+2++1/+1 counters on it. Cough cough Rinka's ability. And then pay 0, return this card to its owner's hand. You may pay 4 less to play cards named Eternal Recurrence until end of turn. Play this ability only during your turn and only once per turn. So Eternal Recurrence is just destroy all resonators. So on your turn, if you can sneak around it, it's just a 1-cost board wipe. We lost Mike, which means we look really weird on camera. So I like this card, but
the big important thing is that this card does not win you the game and it costs 3 mana. So
again, I'm looking forward in the fact that we're losing Rune Rulers, and that again, I think we might be approaching a format where 3 costs could be actually doing things more consistently.
You say that, and then there's a bunch of banish effects in the format, but that's okay.
Yeah, I'm not saying play. I'm saying maybe play it on curve, not play it early.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh,
on curve.
I did just say on curve. I did just say play it.
We have Seal of Wind and Light in the format.
So regardless, I think it's interesting to me that they didn't give this card the same level of protection that Altising has. Sure, Altising, because like Altising does cost 1 green to turn on to bounce back to hand, and you can do it multiple times. So I guess that's maybe why. But like the bounce back to hand kind of almost doesn't seem great.
It's like bad Misty Dragon Spirit,
right? Because like, sure, you can pay 0 to bounce it, but then they just respond and kill it, and you don't have a way to bring it back anyway. So, but then at that point in time, is your opponent really doing like like they're going down 2 for 1? Like,
I just think my favorite part of this card is that there's just gonna be. I'm just gonna make a meme where it's just like, I Spy needs to make a card that is decently statted but needs to have a little bit more, and then the button, like the nut button, but it's just gonna have Drain Bane on it, and the hand going down and slap it.
I do think it's interesting though that it's the Mikage sisters, and they literally just gave her only Rinka's ability. Like, yeah, just Rinka. The other two don't
Rinka's
matter.
Ability and Yasuhine's ability to bounce itself back to hand, and Char's ability to blow up your opponent's board. All 3 of them are represented in this card. It's crazy.
Nope. That being said, though, beautiful artwork.
Oh yeah, well the Mikage sisters are always just
beautiful.
For sure.
Beautiful.
Especially Yasuhide shouldn't step on me. Anyway, next card.
Lonely Vampire. Lonely Vampire is our 1-cost 4/4 vampire. When this card leaves the field, your opponent banishes a resonator. Keep in mind that this is when it leaves the field. It doesn't have to.
This card.
It's not like you can flicker it and force it banish.
I love this card.
I agree. I think this card is fantastic.
Card's so cool.
I think
Mozart for 1 and test 2 more stats.
Yeah, I definitely think that this is a card. This is a card that, like, if you're playing a revenge-based deck, you're definitely playing 4 of in your 1-drop slot, because it makes.
I want to play it in Lumia and Wanderer.
That
just flicker it and
that as well.
things.
Like, yeah, being able to use any kind of repeatable banish like this is very, very good. It also turns
such a simple line of text, and it's a 1-cost vampire, and vampires like such an underutilized card type in the Eternal formats. And it's just like,
yeah. It also turns things like Blazer's Art of Slaughter into pay 1, sack 2 things, which is nice.
Yeah.
Or, End of Friendship into pay 2, sack 3 things, like force your opponent to sack 3 things, which is nuts. Like, this card is good, like, just is good as a 1-drop.
Yeah. Very easily just 1-for-1s on its own, and kind of potentially chip in damage 2-for-1s. It's got similar kind of aspect to Shadow X, except not as crazy bonkers, but like also interesting.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. Paul, any thoughts?
Yeah, but I wanna get through. I guess I can talk about it now. I thought Suya was coming up and he was a vampire, but he's not. But I look at this and I'm like,
yeah,
we have some general vampire support in Rhea since she gives
Vampires
brain to vampires, right? So this is like potential recursion bait. And when I think of Mikage sisters and when I think of Lonely Vampire playing the Power of One or whatever the crap it is, the Pokemon movie where you sacrifice something and you get something back from the graveyard.
Oh, sure.
I love that. Vampire.
Yeah.
And then you bring in either your Griffin or your Mikage sisters, and you just start going to town from there. And I'm just
listen to this guy paying 2 to bring back a 3-drop. Look at Paul being economical with his power plays.
I just wonder, can I just put this card back in my hand multiple times? Because it's 0 cost, right? So I can just activate that as many times in response. Is that how that works?
Are you talking
only
about
during your turn, only once per turn?
Are you talking about the Rhea sisters?
Yeah.
Yeah, they are only during your turn and only once per turn. So
it's not Mr. Dragon Spirit.
Yeah.
Oh, you're right. It says right at the end.
Yep. Gotta read.
Sorry, the art was in the way.
Mr. Okay. Just remember, everybody, reading the card does in fact explain the card. It's very, very difficult. Reading comprehension is the biggest nerf anybody can ever have in this game.
We're gonna go ahead.
I just stopped reading after Eternal Recurrence is playable. I stopped reading that.
So I do want to go ahead and jump to what Paul was alluding to. We're gonna talk about Suya. So this is from a lore-driven perspective. I love the fact that out of nowhere suddenly Rhea has a twin. Like, okay, sure. So we're gonna start with Suya's Darkness. So it's 3 quick cost black quick cast. You may pay 1 black less to play this card for each Darkness Resonator you control. Put it to a graveyard from the field this turn. J Resonators your opponent control gain -2/-2 until end of turn. For each entity you controlled, put into a graveyard this turn. Draw a card.
Card's decent.
It's decent. I think it's definitely probably a better draft card than anything else.
The fact that it's quick cast is actually probably the biggest thing that it has going for it.
Yeah.
Because we've only really seen quick cast like board minuses on like Endless Night just giving -2 and Perfect Loki giving -infinity and breaking people's game and hurting their feelings and all the stuff that it did.
Go ahead.
But yeah, this thing is just really, really cool. It's really good post combat if you're playing it for quick cast during when you start like eating damage and going into combat and like your thing deals 4, it dies, your opponent thing deals 4, and then you just -6 their board after a bunch of things die for free. But then also you get the fact that it's like if you're playing this in a sack heavy deck, obviously Mikage wants it, but also in like Eternal formats, you're playing Incarnation with like Nyarlathotep, and you just kind of somebody.
One thing to me that this to me says is, one, it's a way to get extra value off of your revenge trigger, like your revenge enabling stuff, which is good. But also, two, this is actually like, for Mikage, because it's smart and it specifically says darkness resonators. This is a nice way to like prevent blowback in a way. Like if you're in like board states where, you know, it's kind of like your opponent tries to clear to get through, you could be like, well, in response to you trying to get through, you know, kind of almost like a reset button.
Something interesting to know about the set is that this is the first of the, I think it's first, but other than like the dragons, this is one of those cards that just like, it's like we see a lot of things that say you can cost color less for something, and then the symbols are all the colors. So there's a lot of things in this format that, given the right opportunity, can be free, which is really interesting.
Yes, and that's like having a potential free -6/-6. Like there was a reason why at the beginning of Rune Rulers, Jet Black Wings was the go-to darkness rune, and we saw it played everywhere. Like -6 specifically to your opponent's board is a big stat swing, like an important stat swing. So the fact that this card can potentially just be like, okay, -6, that's for free. That's very, very relevant. So we are now going to talk about Suya, who is our last Marvel rare. So Suya, Cursed Spawn of the Star, 1-drop 4/4.
I hate the phrase spawn. That's fine.
I understand. 1-drop 4/4. Enter. Target player banishes a non-Magic Stone, non-Jade Ruler entity. Put X +1/+1 counters on this card, where X is the total cost. Banish this way. And then you may pay 1 black less to play cards named Curse of Ragnarok. Curse of Ragnarok is his spell side. Naturally costs 2 black, then costs 1. It has Remnant. Look at your opponent's hand, choose a card. They remove that card from the game.
Card was very divisive when it was revealed, and I don't understand why.
Yeah, I think to me, he and Arla or Arl are Arlie, whatever, are
Fox
probably the bottom of the barrel for these for me. Arlie makes kind of sense because she turns on, like, she has like natural recursion within herself, and she turns on some of what Lilius Puddle wants to do. There's nothing really about this card that makes me go, oh yeah, this is a revenge card. Like, you know what I mean? So like, it doesn't seem to have a clear identity associated with what Mikage is designed to do. And also he's just like a 1-drop you don't want to play early, and the later you play him, the worse he gets because your opponent has more things to sack.
Yep.
And also, like, sure, his spell has Remnant, but like, I mean, you're still 1-for-1ing, right? Like, I guess because it still costs 1, and we have other discard stuff that also RFGs things, like
Dark Alice's Smile.
Right. I mean, like, Dark Alice's Smile can't hit a Resonator, sure.
But it can hit Regalia, which you're already trying to hit with his front side.
And it only costs 1. Like, this guy. So, like, if I'm playing a deck that I want to be discarding on turn 1, if I'm on the play, and I play this over Dark Alice's Smile, I can't. Ta-da! And I also can't play him, because then there's nothing for my opponent to sack. So I get no value off of it. I played a 1-drop 4/4 vanilla. Woo. And if I'm going second, I still have to pay 2 to get rid of 1 card. When I could, again, just maybe double Dark Alice's Smile and discard 2 cards at that point in time, right? So I think that he's awkwardly timed and statted. Like, if they had made this guy a 2-drop with a
and
big...
made the Curse of Ragnarok the 1-drop.
If they had made him a 2-drop with a bigger stats... Like, even like a 6/7, like a 2-drop 6/7 or something like that, and then made his and then still made Curse of Ragnarok a 2 cost that costs 1. Sure, that would still make him better in my eyes than this. But like, as it stands right now, he just feels awkward. Like,
He doesn't have a home, and also the fact that we're getting this human support right after Brunhild rotated to bring him back for free.
Yeah, right. We don't, and we also don't have, we don't have March of the Undead anymore, or like, we don't have clear ways to bring this guy back to like make use of that abuse. And like, if we're trying to force banishes, like we also just have that 1-drop 4/4 vampire from earlier, like.
The one thing I do want to mention is that people are going to hear this and be like, "Oh, Jeremy's saying he's bad." This is a really good card.
Yes,
I will not. This is 100%. I will definitely say this is a good card.
Yes.
But as Jeremy mentioned, the cost is awkward. We're not sure if he's going to fit this metagame, especially if people try to build wide boards. He's awful against wide boards. Your opponent will just sack something that means nothing. Happens all the time. It's the reason that like Blazer's Art of Slaughter didn't see much play in most decks.
Yep.
Other than Gil and then some just like control aspect decks. But that being said, I think this card's entire usefulness completely rides on how good Rizard is. Because Death Scythe says you can produce black or green in any combination of attributes to play yada 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 and cards in a graveyard. So this is a free remnant card when you play it from the grave.
It says abilities of cards in your graveyard.
Is that abilities?
Mm-hmm.
Could have sworn it was just cards in your grave. Hang on.
Oh wait, no. I guess it has, because if he's gonna play Sigurd, it'd have to play cards in graveyard. So yes, yes, you're right. I corrected myself. Yes, but you're right, because this this makes it so that you have a nice little way to get, like, if you have, so at that point in time, if you have Rezard double Suya, right? You have Suya, you play Rezard, you can cast it, then cast it again, in a way to like double up on the remnant. But again, of the Marvel rares, he feels the most without a home, without a natural home. Again, not to say that he is bad, because this is a good card.
He's a very good card.
He's just awkward when we put him into what decks are kind of trying to do and what his stats are, like his stats and cost. Like, he's just awkward especially by comparison to the other Marvel rares. So yeah, that's all. I don't know. I don't really have any other thoughts about that. Paul, do you have any thoughts on Suya here?
So I'm trying to think of like what exactly the designers were thinking when they made this card, and I think this is at most a 3 of if you're going hard for your revenge strategy, but I personally don't think I'll ever use more than 2 at this point in the game, right? Because I don't know if we're going to get more revenge support. I don't know if we're going to repeat things from this set later on in the next set. So this is one of those cards where it feels weird right now, but it might be one of those long-term investment kind of cards where you get your 4 and then you use them later on, but you don't use them right now because it's a human. It's not a vampire, like you all said already. But it also says target player. So I'm like, okay, if I come in and kill my own thing and I get a benefit off of it, and then I trigger all of my revenge stuff, is that kind of the point of this at this juncture in the game? I don't really know, and maybe I don't know. It does feel awkward, I will say all that. That's why I'm thinking it's like maybe at most a 2 of at the moment, but it could go up later as we see the rest of the sets and stuff. So keep them on your radar.
I will also say very fun card. Like,
oh yeah,
like I would play this card, but I don't think that the concern that people were expressing when he was first, or a few people were expressing when he was first spoiled, I just don't see that.
Also, he's really, really bad against. Like, if people are fearing Lilius as much as people are fearing Lilius, this card's trash against Lilius. Like, does literally nothing.
Yeah. Yep.
This feels like Dark Riding Hood.
Yeah, that's
that is a really good. Yeah, she was just very awkward and like didn't quite know where she wanted to be. If you pulled her off, she was really, really great. But like the situations where you would actually be wanting to do anything with her were just kind of like really, really niche. And yeah, I think that's a really good connection.
Yeah. Until we got to like sets 3 and 4, she didn't really seem possible, and then all of a sudden she was like, "Oh, this is more consistent."
Speaking of a card that's really, really weird, and probably that doesn't do anything. We have the Isolated Demon of Revenge. should actually be called Isolated Demon of Just Playing in Draft. This is a 4-cost 12/12 that you may pay. Costs 2 black if you don't control a J Resonator. Revenge, he gains flying, and if he's put into a graveyard from the field, put another target Resonator from your graveyard into your hand. Keep in mind, Revenge goes away at the end of the turn.
Mm-hmm.
And he can't even recycle himself.
Immediate thoughts.
Why is this a rare?
Well, my immediate thought, I think the biggest thing is that you just have to ignore the bottom line of text, actually.
Yeah.
I think this card is just like a mid-range controlled darkness staple. You play a 2-mana 12/12 after removing a card in your opponent's hand from the game on turn 1 with Dark Alice Smile, and then you just go ham with a 12/12. Like, I don't know. There's not much setup you have to do for this thing. Just don't have a Resonator, which is really easy.
Yeah, he's very. I mean, like, he is definitely an early big pressure threat.
Even turn 1, just energizing him out, it's like scary.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with that. Overall impact. Excuse me. Which is why I think that he's definitely, in my eyes, a lot more threatening in draft, especially now with the ruler change, being the fact that all rulers have energize, which means that the draft rulers have energize, which means that in draft you can actually play this guy on turn 1. Like, regardless of what your stone base is. So, like, that to me, in a format based on how much spot removal there is, there's really not a lot internally in the set of, like, unrestricted early spot removal for something this big. So, like, this guy on turn 1 in a draft is like, okay, crap. But, I mean, cool design. Overall, not super impressed with this guy, but cool.
Yeah, I feel like it's going to take a creative player to figure out what this card's going to actually do. Like, clearly it's above the power curve, like above the power curve.
Yes, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But it's definitely like you have to be playing a specific kind of deck that doesn't want a 1-drop on board. You're going to want to be playing a deck that, you know, can kind of give him some protection, that wants to see a 12/12 without flying just kind of hit your opponent of every turn. Hard removal, maybe a little bit of protection. I don't know. This guy, he feels like a really early snowball card that could steamroll somebody if not checked properly, but I feel like there's enough things to check in the format that it's like...
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of big things, let's go to Bone Dragon, our last dragon. 5-cost 17/13 with flying. Pay 1 black less to play this card for each Darkness Resonator you control put into a graveyard from the field this turn. Enter, put X 400 zombie Resonator tokens into the field, where X is the number of Resonators in your graveyard.
Yeah, it's not the amount of Resonators put into a graveyard this turn. It's just
that exist. Essentially, turns just like flat graveyard. Here you go. This guy also, of the, like, in terms of direct impact on board state, this guy is the most, like, varied, right? Because, like, it could be 1, it could be 18, right? He also, however, feels the most awkward because, like, having Darkness Resonators go to graveyard means that it probably needed to happen on your turn.
God, imagine if this thing was legal when Sacred Altar was legal.
Yeah, like, oh my gosh, that would be crazy. That would be crazy. But like the fact that he doesn't have quick cast means that if your opponent is killing your stuff on their turn, like, he feels almost like a follow-up play, which feels weird because he doesn't have swiftness. So then you, like, spend will after trying to make plays to put this guy to refill your field and then say pass. And then your opponent has their whole turn to deal with it, right? So, like, the threat that this guy represents feels pretty delayed and pretty answerable, which is kind of meh. Like, honestly, like, cool. Like, and again, draft bomb. Like,
Yeah, this card's really good in draft.
like draft bomb. Like, just go for it. But as a whole, I'd probably put him like middle of the dragons. Like, I
this
think
thing's a super rare.
I think my list is like water dragon, fire dragon, darkness dragon, light dragon, wind dragon.
Yeah, respectable.
I think that's my order for the dragons. I think he's just kind of like middle of the road. He's there. He's cool. But like, eh.
Yep, I would agree with that.
Best artwork, though.
Why is he not a zombie? Why is he just a dragon? He's clearly made of bones.
His name is
Then
Bone
again-
Dragon.
Then again, we are all made of bones, just wearing a meat suit. So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
It's true. It's clearly just, it's still alive. It's just, its bones are on the outside.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like my dragons like I like my wings, boneless.
See what you did there.
Speaking of dragons, let's go to the Dragon Lord himself with Ragnarok, specifically his support cards. We have the deities, the servants. So these across the board, just to quickly say, all of these cards they have one form of an effect and then gain something else or a boosted effect option if your ruler is Ragnarok. So if you're playing them as multiple copies, they're like one thing, and then if you're playing them as the one of copy that you can play them in Ragnarok, they get boosted either by a separate mode or a boosted like additional effect or something like that. You're right, Toby. At least all of the dragons have flying.
Oh my god.
It's a tiny thing. It's a tiny thing, but it's important. So first up, we have the Light Servant. So 2-cost quick cast, 5/7. Gains an extra 1,000 defense if your ruler is Ragnarok. Damage would be dealt to you. It's dealt to this card instead. That means that your opponent has to get through 1,700 damage to be able to hurt.
Oh my god.
To be able to hurt you.
It's almost an Alice Avatar of the Seven Lands.
Yeah, but he doesn't have barrier.
And he also doesn't have, attack.
Yeah.
And also just kind of exists.
He's got quick cast. I think based on how much Ragnarok support we see in this set, which is interesting because again we've got 6 rulers worth of support to fit into 110 cards. Based on how much Ragnarok support there is, you might just play one of each of the deities just because to fill out some deck space. But like,
I mean, this as far as the deities go, this one's probably one of the more tempo oriented ones, which is weird to think about. Like,
Right.
obviously it's got high defense and you're going to play it to try to survive a turn, but at the same time it's also just like you can just play the set as a 5/7 in other decks, and it's just like quick cast, decent stats in light, just smack them in the face. It's not a terrible card, it's just very underwhelming at first look, I would say.
Agreed. Next up, we have the Fire Servant. 3-drop, 8/6. Choose one or choose the second mode if you have Ruler of Ragnarok. First one is deal 1,000 damage to target player or J Resonator, or deals 1,000 damage to 3 target players and or J Resonators. Choose this option only if you choose Ragnarok. So you can burn something for 10, or you can burn 3 things for 10 if it's Ragnarok.
Will 100% say this is the only Ragnarok Resonator that I think is much better if you're not playing Ragnarok.
Yeah, because you have to do 3 targets.
Yep, and if one of those if you only have 2 targets, including your opponent's face, one of those targets is your face, buddy,
Or himself.
or himself.
Which is yeah, very interesting. I mean, even just by itself, a 3-drop like tempo card of a 3-drop 8/6, burn a thing for 10, or put a body on board, burn your opponent for 10. Like, I think this might see play in a Lilius burn deck because it also is a fire card. So like, there's a possibility of, oh, I've flipped Lilius, I have 10 counters, play a body, burn you for 20. Like, whoops.
But I don't know. I can't justify paying 3 mana for a thing that doesn't do anything but burn things.
I mean, it also puts a body on board.
It's an 8/6 body. That's not a body. Don't tell me I'm wrong, Jeremy.
I will just say you can choose one. So if your opponent doesn't have two things on board you want to burn, you can just choose to burn their face or just burn something on the board.
That's
instead.
true. He's not wrong. That you can
So
just choose the mode of picking to burn just one thing.
It's true. You can do that.
Paul coming in with the reading.
Hey,
Yeah, but
read
are
your
you gonna do
cards.
that? The answer is no.
Wow.
I agree. It should be better than that, but it's not.
Speaking of better than that, we've got the Water Servant of Ragnarok. One
Water
cost
Servant's really good.
one cost 4/4. Enter, draw a card. If your ruler is Ragnarok, draw 3 cards instead. I actually like this card for a different reason than the fact that it draws 3. I like this reason for the fact that it kind of lets you skip a Ragnarok effect. Like the fact that its enter effect is literally just one of Ragnarok's 6 modes, meaning that you don't necessarily have to waste an activation of him to draw 3 cards.
But you still do, because you just draw 6 with this card and Ragnarok combined.
Yeah, I understand. Like, don't get me wrong. I think that drawing 6 is like that's a great way for Ragnarok to refill its hand, especially as a singleton deck. Like this
I've heard
is
drawing
value.
6 is pretty good. Quote from Jeremy Franklin, 2020, quote unquote.
yeah, it's good. I just I like the fact that that if I need to, I don't have to use a draw 3 effect as early as I maybe feel like I should. Which for Ragnarok, again, how good these deities are is very much based on what other Ragnarok support we get, and how Ragnarok has to build.
It's also just a decent tempo card. Like,
Yeah.
One mana, 1 blue 4/4 draw card is not terrible.
Yeah.
Back in the day, this card would have been broken.
Yeah.
Speaking as the budget player in the room, if you don't end up getting your Kikis, this is basically your Alice's little scout. For all you old school players. Yes, I did that very early on in my career here.
I remember playing Alice's Little Scout before I had Cheshires too.
Ugh. I got him like 10 years ago.
You
Big struggle tweets.
you budget players.
That's us.
Our last one for tonight is the Wind Servant of Ragnarok. 1 green, quick cast, 1/5. Produce 1 will of any attribute. If your ruler is Ragnarok, produce 3 wills of any 1 attribute instead.
Dog, why is this a quick cast?
Yeah, I also wonder this. Also, what now? I'm just thinking, what's the biggest 5 cost we can play on turn 1?
Oh no, we're losing Jubei and Athenia. We can't kill their stones anymore.
Yeah, like what's the biggest 5 drop we can play on turn 1 as a Ragnarok?
The Green Dragon to get another stone.
We figured it out.
There it is.
We figured it out.
There are literally just like no good 5 drops right now.
It's a weird slot. I think that it's a nice way for Ragnarok to kind of make use of his ability on the opponent's, like a pseudo version of his ability on the opponent's turn. I like the fact design wise that it's only 1 attribute. But it's like more than it's like a trade-off, right? So like his ability is 2 for any color combination. This is 3 for 1. The fact that it's quick cast is, I think, bonkers. But again, it's only a 1 of.
So I feel like this card has applications at Welser too. Because I'm still struggling to remember all of the text on all of the rulers. But you quick cast this in on your opponent's turn. You produce the will. You do a thing, such as your arrow. Put something back in their hand, and then you untap your stone, so you can do some stuff on
That's
your
true.
recovery step.
This does potentially help Welser set up. This does potentially help Welser set up for some other during your opponent recovery shenanigans plays.
This is also just a free resonator, which is another big thing. Like
Mm-hmm.
you just play this. You produce. Well, you play this. You produce
Whatever color you need.
whatever color you need. You play another resonator. They play Gwyber, and just like into Gwyber in the non Ragnarok decks.
Get out of here! Get out of here with Gwyber, man! Get out of here with Gwyber.
Dream. Benbar gets to eat your fucking heart out.
What you're saying is at turn 2, I can play something, throw this thing in, produce a white will, then play my Gwyber.
Yes.
And
then familiar.
And then
you
have your,
lose.
Yeah, and then you lose your Gwyber.
Then you lose the game.
No.
Lose the game. Lose the game.
One thing I do want to talk about with these servants, I think as a whole, before we move on to our next topic of the night, is Ragnarok is a void ruler, which means that Autorakti's Memoria becomes literally can't produce anything. It literally is a dead stone. You can't play it in his deck because he doesn't have an attribute. And you don't want to play Ruler's Memoria because you certainly don't want to be playing Regalia for a ruler that doesn't have a J ruler side.
Mm-hmm.
So unless they print him a 5-color stone, like his stone base is going to get really wonky pretty quick, especially since his Energize is also for void only. And so that's why these servants are kind of also a little bit weird to me, because there's a servant in every color. Arguably, all of them are just one of their base color, at least that we've seen so far. But like that is awkward.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering what the implications of deck building are going to be for Ragnarok in terms of like his stone bases are going to look potentially pretty weird. I think that these servants being a one-of deck, I think that the servants will probably be like, you'll probably see water and wind in every single Ragnarok deck. We haven't seen darkness yet. And so like darkness, light, and fire are probably more like situational towards the build of like what primary colors you're playing as a Ragnarok deck.
Mm-hmm.
But like
water, sure green has to be the base because of the servant, because of the wind servant.
Yeah, probably. You're probably not wrong. But like water and wind are probably going to get their place in every single one, and then we'll see where the other three lie. But I mean that's the interesting thing about Ragnarok is there's so little we know about him, and if he's going to see any support. So he's kind of right now the biggest like question mark in terms of how he's going to be built. Specifically because of his color like restrictions, because he doesn't get access to anything that like he has to rely on dual stones as far as we know. Which like dual stones do get weird when you start to go into like 4 or 5 color. So we'll have to see. It's interesting to me.
I would also say that if Ragnarok does end up going into dual stones very heavily, and that we of course have split in the meta, so like that also helps to contain Ragnarok, not only his natural variance, but just the fact that we could just burn him to death. Done. Potentially.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, like post cluster rotation where we don't have dual stones anymore, I don't know what that looks like.
Yeah, that's actually going to be the weirdest thing. Like, what happens when we lose the duels?
Well, so that becomes another question, right? So Force of Will, there is a question of, did dual stones ever truly go away? Because Force of Will, for the most part, kind of has this history of cluster without, cluster with, cluster without, cluster with, cluster without, cluster with. So then the question becomes like, sure, Saga clusters are cluster without. Do we get a cluster with immediately next? Or are we moving on to something else? But like, that's the weirdness. And I do think that, like, the thing about IU was that she had 4 or 5 color stones. So yep. like her deck is naturally way better consistency wise.
And you also know what colors you're focusing on because of the flip.
Right, because of the flip. And also at the same time, like, she felt comfortable splashing off-color stuff because she had 4 or 5 color stones.
Yep.
So now we have to make a singleton deck without a J ruler side to focus on, without seemingly any kind of 5-color stone, which feels really weird. So like there's a question in me is wondering if like whatever Ragnarok wants to do, maybe one of the other rulers just does it better because they have a J ruler side and they could be more focused in their color focus.
Yeah.
And so like that to me is the question that needs to be answered.
Mm-hmm. It also just makes me wonder as we get more sets, does Ragnarok just continue to increase in power? Is he a long-term ruler, or is he just like, I don't know, just kind of like the gimmick card
Yeah.
of this set, and then we get something different next set? I don't know.
They printed him just to support Epic Stories.
I mean, I would love that kind of acknowledgement of the fan community. That would be amazing.
No,
Except he's
devil.
definitely getting banned in Epic Stories, but that's aside the point.
In like 2 seconds. In like 2 seconds. Him and Magna probably both. So our next conversation that I want to have with this last little bit is this coming weekend is pre-release. Keep in mind that there has been a big shift in how pre-releases are done, particularly because of COVID, but also stores have been given permission to sell pre-release kits as product. In the past that was very frowned upon, but like I Spy wants to get cards in people's hands, wants people to have fun. So the big thing to note is like if you have a pre-release kit or if you have a way to get a pre-release kit, you can do them. Usually the biggest recommendation we've ever had is to like at least try to get 4-man together, a 4-man little pod. You could do it as a sealed game where it's 6 packs per person, or you can do it as a draft where it's 4 packs per person. If you get a pre-release kit and you have a 4-man pod, you can do both. Like you have enough packs to do a sealed and a draft event, which really makes for a fun day. So I do kind of want to speak to just a little bit about kind of some recommendations that we have for you to kind of get the most out of your pre-release experience. First thing to note is that there is an official draft ruler now. I recommend using it. I think it works very, very well. Remember, it does have Energize. It has a Void Energize. And then that's like a pretty big piece that's going to make your whole experience a lot more fun. I don't really know. I don't know. Things that I would consider is like just try to have try unique things. I think that we've seen a lot from this set so far that will fit well into a draft format. I think that like it will fit well into a synergy style deck, but even as we've talked tonight, there have been cards where like this is cool for draft or for sealed. We've done a teachers lounge episode on like drafting on pre-releases stuff, so consider going to go check that out. But like if you have a chance, even if you can't get a pre-release kit, if you can find a store that's ordered some kits, like try to see if they'll let you buy some packs, or some stores are even receiving their actual shipment of product for release week alongside pre-release kits. So maybe they didn't get pre-release kits, but maybe they got sealed boxes. So then maybe ask if they're willing to let you buy packs for a sealed, event to do something like that. Because like it's gonna be fun. I think you're gonna have a good time. Any kind of like suggestions or like things that you guys would like to share about things to keep in mind for pre-release?
Just obviously focus on having fun with it. It's never gonna be like you can never try hard too hard with like a sealed event. And I don't know, these sets have been designed very well for draft play. I know that Alice Origin Cluster with all the strangers and all like the 2 good bombs existing has been an issue, but I don't know. It's just going to be a good format, honestly.
I think that's probably just my answer is like drafting is your opportunity. Pre-release is your opportunity to just have a lot of experimentation time. Like how good is this card? Like oftentimes I will play draft or pre-release and just say like, okay, what is this card trying to do? What is it? It just adds to the card analysis because I actually have the stuff in my hands, and I'm one of those people who like I gotta play this stuff in order for me to really make sense of it. And that's a really good opportunity for me to do that, especially if I'm hanging out with a couple of really great guys like we were last time. I get to just play cards and just have fun and just really absorb the cards and what they're supposed to do. And if you're new to the game, I think this is the best way to enter in.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. There are plenty of people, I think, Samuel, who are still currently playing Force of Will. It does seem to be that the community is growing in pocketed areas. So I think you will be able to find people to play with. And if not, try your hands at maybe getting a group together.
Dude, talking 59 viewers right now. Look at this guy.
How many viewers do we have right now?
60 now. Boy, can't count.
What? I can't tell from my side how many people we have currently viewing.
Is that right? Is that the viewer count or is that the time? Maybe it's the time. I don't know.
It might be the time.
It might be the time.
Stop viewing.
Regardless,
Quick. Hey.
quick! Everybody jump back in.
There are going to be more than 25 views in this video once it's up.
Yeah. So, regardless, though, I think the game is growing slowly. I think Force of Will has really committed itself to being a tier 1.5, tier 2 game, and I think to that end, you're going to see growth. But as always, it is going to take commitment from the player base, as with any small game, to kind of grow it. You got to make it kind of a little bit of a cult following. Pre-releases are a fantastic way to get those people involved.
That's the time. I was incorrect.
I was about to say 60 seems like a lot for a podcast. But
Matt's saying they got 23 right now, and there's 3 more Force of Will players on this call, so 25 is.
We got it.
Definitely not a thing.
More than twice.
We got it. Yeah, for sure. We do have, we've also had Teachers Lounge podcasts talking about how to build your locals. So, we've done a lot of those kinds of conversations. So I definitely encourage people to check that out. There are 4 spoiler cards that we did not talk about today, particularly because I did them as an exclusive spoiler video. Today on the channel, we were gracious enough to be given 4 exclusive spoilers to show off before anybody else. The Hidden Histories cards. Don't show it, Paul. So don't grab it. So go check that video out for sure. Because those are some really, really cool cards, I think.
Everybody in chat, do not take that "don't grab it, Paul" out of context.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just leave that alone. Don't edit that.
Nope.
Don't.
Nope.
Don't
Nope.
post it all over.
Nope. So the other thing that I do want to mention is that this week we will have no feature match, but we have a couple other things coming out this week, particularly on Friday, so the first day of pre-release. We are going to be posting a double box opening of Epic of the Dragon Lord. I have this box. I can show it off. Haha. See that? That's a box of Epic of the Dragon Lord that is empty of packs because I have opened them for a video to be posted later this week. So come back and check that out on Friday. And then on Saturday night, Eastern Standard Time, probably starting at around 6:30, we are actually going to be streaming our little 4-man pre-release that we're going to be having here at Ruler School. So be sure to check that out. So no feature match this week, no feature match next week. Instead, you get advanced openings of product and a sneak peek stream. So be sure to check that out. People are saying, do it now, show us a new spoiler. Sorry, I can't. If you want new spoilers, you can check that link. You can check that's a card. You can check those videos that I posted today for the Hidden Histories. If you like what we do, I do want to say, do want to quickly sing is many Magic players ask the question, is there a cheaper and better card game out there? The answer is yes, it is called Force of Will. So I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. If you like what we did, if we made you smile, if we made you laugh, if you enjoy Force of Will content and want us to see us improve, please consider clicking that subscribe button and that join button down below and becoming a member here on YouTube. The join button is the easiest way to support us financially. It helps us get access to all kinds of new equipment and potentially hiring some new staff or getting better equipment or traveling to events or anything else. And we appreciate it significantly. Until next time, though, we are glad to be able to provide you with the content that we hope you enjoy. And so this has been myself, DMO73, and I have been joined by Pinky Up Mike Rants.